Here we go. We're going to see how this goes.
I get to see into the hearts of coaches and athletes so quickly.
We can have this adrenaline rush in the moment and still be the image bearers of Christ that we are called to be.
My passion is for the life of Christ to be lived out through me.
I mean, Seth turned a little red when he was talking. It was really, really
I
good.
get really excited.
We want to find an easier time. We want to find a better time. And it's never going to appear. The best time is now.
Zach, you're dropping proverbs on us, man.
My work as coach is a minister of the gospel.
Man, I am looking forward to more conversations around this. You guys are the best.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Competing Biblically podcast. Seth here with you with Nick and Zach again this week. And we have got some new gear on. So the Competing Biblically shirts have come in. Those of you that are on our call for the Competing Biblically call, you will be getting some, as well as maybe some fortunate others. So shout out to you guys. If not, you should definitely get on the call so you can get one of these cool shirts.
Yeah, and get the info and the transformation and the fellowship and the shirt.
Oh yeah, all that too. I mean, I guess that's important too.
And we'll get you a copy of the hat.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we're excited. Zach, how are you doing today? I know we've had a chance to talk a little bit, but yeah, how are things going for you?
Things are splendid, Seth. I just live such a blessed life. I get to play lacrosse. School is a thing that I get to do to play lacrosse. And yeah, it's just a good time. Waking up early, getting a lift in. I don't like being up in the morning, but man, getting up in the morning and exercising just makes it so much different. And then getting in the Word after that is just a great way to start the day.
Today we are diving into chapter 5 of the HAP, the Handbook on Athletic Perfection. One that we've really been looking forward to. This chapter and the next chapter are going to be some really, really good chapters. I think going to spark some really good discussion. So the chapter today of chapter 5 is the dilemma of the Christian athlete. So today we're talking about, say someone comes to Christ or they're growing and their life around them has been transformed, and our goals and our focus for athletics don't. And we talked about this a lot in the intro, so there's going to be a little bit of a recurring theme, but we're going to have some other things to dive into. But it's a really important conversation. I know Zach and I, and Nick even, earlier, Nick and I, you and I were talking, and we've all experienced this. And I think all Christian athletes do at some level, about if we don't reshape our focus on athletics, it can seem like a waste of time.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely can seem that way. And honestly, like, that is a ploy, I think, of the enemy, of our flesh, of trying to take something spiritual, something that's good and right, a great opportunity, and make it seem like it's worthless and doesn't have, like, taking this great opportunity in sport where we can have a platform, we can grow and be shaped and sanctified in our walk, taking it and making it seem like it's worthless, when really it's a precious stone that the Lord is trying to use sport to reveal in us. Yeah,
and we had mentioned, I think back in the intro, we had this kind of conversation, but I mean, this is really a new mind. We talk about the framework. This chapter is a new mind chapter. We need to approach sport with a new approach and a new mind. And because what happens a lot of times is when we come to the Lord for the first time, maybe you've been following the Lord for a while, and the rest of your life is transformed. God has changed the way you approach all these different aspects of your life, and you read the Bible, it comes alive. You know, you have fellowship with others, and your relationships look different, and maybe your work looks different. But with the world of sport, if it doesn't, then it seems like it's part of this old life. And Wes talks a lot about recognition. We went through in the first season of the podcast 4 core idols, and I think it could be any of those. But he talks about if your pursuit is still self-serving pursuit, then it's going to seem like your athletic participation is sinful, because in truth it is. But the truth is it doesn't have to be that way. And what the enemy wants to do is take you away from that and not allow God to use it to shape you, or he wants you to stay in it and allow that to be a way for the enemy to continue to cultivate bad motivations, bad mindsets, for you to continue to find self-seeking pleasure, recognition through the avenue of sport.
Yeah, and the next handful of chapters are really trending. The next handful of chapters are really trending that way, where we'll dive into motivations, we'll dive into that stuff, and I think I love that Wes kind of starts here in this intro of talking about love and acceptance, of like, I think those are two holes that a lot of people walk around. Those are holes in our heart that we walk around with. We want to be loved, we want to be accepted, we want to be known, and when those get filled by Christ, I think a lot of times we find that in sport. We find camaraderie, we find fellowship, and you find a lot of folks find their identity. I know I've struggled with it, finding my identity as an athlete. Yeah. And even as we were talking about this today, but like as the caliber of athlete, I want to be known not just as an athlete, but I want to be known as a great athlete. I want to be known as fill in the blank of what you want to be known as. But those two things, love and acceptance, I think get rerouted and they get fulfilled by Christ, because they should be. Like we're loved by Christ. We're accepted. He uses Romans 15:7 here and says, therefore, accept one another just as Christ also accepted us to the glory of God. Yeah. So those things get taken care of, and now what? This is the dilemma. Yeah. And I know that you guys have experienced that, and Zach, I think that you are going to chime in here a little bit and share a little bit of your story as well.
Yeah. And I wanted to, before Zach shares real quick, just say, Nick, I mean, really it's good news, because we were using sport to find love and acceptance.
For sure.
But now we get to compete out of a place of being loved and accepted already. So we don't have to play sports searching for something, but we can play and compete out of the overflow, which we've talked a lot about.
And that's idolatry. Like the definition of idolatry, that I forget who said it, but it's something I heard early on, is when a good thing becomes a God thing, it becomes a very bad thing. And that's one of those instances where sport is holding an unright place in our heart. But our tendency is we want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and not deal with what's below the surface, not deal with what's actually in our heart, which I know, Zach, is what you wrestled with coming into college, right?
Yeah, I mean, so just like background of like my story and sports, like I started getting involved and like truly came to Christ my junior year of high school. Still played sports through my senior year, graduated playing sports, but had no interest in going to play college sports. And I've talked about that on here before and how that came to be. But it really was, I mean, just what you guys are describing. I spent my time in high school sports trying to fulfill those things, the need to be accepted, the need to be praised, which, I mean, like I thought was a healthy outlet of like, man, like I'm putting this time in, I'm putting this effort, like I deserve these things. I deserve to be acknowledged for what I'm doing. I deserve to be accepted by my teammates because I'm doing well. And the more I came to find those things in Christ, the more I came to realize that what I do shouldn't be the basis of my acceptance, whether that be in sports, in life, in relationships. When finding those things through Christ, I really lost a lot of what pulled me to sports was, I mean, those idols that I had in my life of acceptance, acknowledgement, security, being able to control something in my own life when I didn't have a lot of control of what was going on in high school and different things in my life. And coming into college, I had no interest. And so once I changed my entire plan of what I was doing in college, started playing college sports, I really wrestled with this fact. And that was about the time I started meeting with you, Nick, and met you soon after, Seth, and really just started walking through some of these things. It was, I mean, there was no framework that we had put together, no handbook athletic perfection that we had in front of us. But these are the things that we started to talk about. And I really wrestled through it. So, I mean, Wes does a great job of pointing out the 4 flaws and 4 good things about sports. So that first fact is just like a new thing has entered your life. And this spiritual level has entered your life. I mean, we talk about it all all the time in sports about how sports is physical and mental. But man, like when we are Christians, we realize that there is a true spiritual level, and that can go both ways. That can be really good or really bad. I think the problem that I had in sports, and especially transitioning from high school to college, is I found sports as a way to continue in idolatry when the rest of my life was trying, like I was changing the rest of my life to be focused on Christ, and change like my ideals behind it. And then moving like into sports had been the same for me. I was still getting coached the same way. I was still playing the same way with the same mindset, the same attitude. And so it wasn't until we started talking about this stuff and those things started to change that I realized that it wasn't more about giving up sports. It was about giving up my heart and my mindset and my flesh behind that. And we talked about that a little bit before we started recording, but man, like even if I would have given up sports, I would have found another area or avenue in my life that those things would have come out, because I wasn't dealing with the heart issue behind why I was doing it.
And that's when you got to think long-term over short-term, is like, getting rid of the thing now, the stimuli now, doesn't solve the gap of worship. And as you were talking, I kept thinking of like, that is what you're describing is when we're not doing things for the glory of God, is that we look to glorify ourselves.
Yeah.
We want recognition. We want attention. I mean, basically, what does it mean to glorify God? It means to draw attention to all the great and incredible and God things that make God God. And we want people to praise us in the same way. Les does a great job here describing this idea of adding a new dimension. I think that, I don't know, I'd love for you guys to weigh in on this too, but I see in the world of sport that there is this Christians seeing themselves as less than, like a false humility, a false limitation, a false lid of how, and like to passion or to zeal, like trying to get after it in sport. There's like this false governor that gets put in place where we're seeing that we can't do as much as other athletes. We can't be as aggressive. We can't be whatever. And I think that was like, we talked about this after Zach's William U's championship game last year, just seeing like one of the things that was evident was like, no, he had passion and zeal and was flying around the field and doing all these things in spite of the score not looking like it would for that type of energy. So we have this other dimension that allows us to push through walls, and because we're not playing for temporal things. We're playing for an eternal purpose. We're playing to worship and draw attention to an eternal God.
Yeah, Zach, I go back to what you said. I love that you shared. You do hear coaches say a lot that, the game is 10% physical, 90% mental, or whatever they say about that.
Yeah.
The game is also spiritual when you are, whether you know it or not, it's spiritual. But when you've come to Christ, it's spiritual, and you have added that dimension. And I mean, the 3-dimensional coaching program talks a lot about those kinds of things and about the dimension of sports. And you haven't taken anything away. You've added to. And here's the thing that you've added. One of the biggest things I've seen tangibly in the way that I've grown throughout this and been able to lead others in that, is that when you're looking for recognition or awards or acceptance or a win, there's times when those things aren't tangible. And in those moments, your motivation wanes. But your walk with Christ, the love of Christ, is something that never ends. In every moment, you have something to compete, not for, but you have a place from which to compete and to give your all. And sometimes those moments you have, like a game, if you're looking for a win, be up, in a soccer game, 5-0. You pretty much have the win in the bag at that point. What are you competing for? Well, there's still something through which, now maybe at that point, you're not worried about scoring a whole bunch of more goals. You don't need any more. But I'm going to try and get everyone on my team involved in the play. We're going to try and get guys that don't get much playing time in, and we're going to get them some good touches on the ball, work the ball around, and include them into the game. So there's always something to work for when you add this dimension to your life.
Yeah, and then you get to come, if you're a starter, if you're someone who's contributed up front to that 5-0 lead, then you get to come off and do, like, if you come off, what usually happens is these guys just like goof around.
Mm-hmm.
But with the third dimension, now I get to be a teammate who's playing through.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about that on some episodes last season. Like, now I get to play through my teammates with the same power from the Spirit, with the same energy. I get to live out the fruit of the Spirit from the sidelines out onto the field. I get to spur them on to love and good work and get to experience another side of sport versus, okay, I think about those games in football when you're up by a bunch and then you just come off the field and it's like, okay, I'm done at halftime.
Yeah, or even when you're injured. I mean, not able to play, compete, maybe you feel in a physical sense, but there's still a role there for you to be able to play. So the spiritual, and there's more. That's not, when we say your things have been added to your athletic competition, not taken away. There's more than that. That's just one tangible way that I have seen. And then the second point that he says is and this is big, your athletic abilities have been given to you by God. And that is a fundamental point, a simple point, one that I think a lot of people would agree with, but the implications of that I don't think we necessarily live out, because if something has been given to you, maybe this is a wrong question to ask, but is it yours to just set aside? I mean, do you have, in reality, the right to just kind of throw it off and cast it aside? And I mean, I would argue that is something that we should invest in because it's been given to us by God. And we're not there yet, but we're going to talk about the parable of the talents, which talks about that.
Yeah, I think sections 2 and 3 reasons 2 and 3 are kind of two peas in the same pod, so to speak, of like, yeah, the gifts are given by God, and now it's our responsibility to invest them. Yeah. But to answer your question, I think of Colossians 1. So, like, are these just for us to sit on or to enjoy, or who are they for? Are they for us? Or are they for God? So I think of Colossians 1 when it gives this account of God, I think in verse 15. Starting in verse 15, he says that he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created, things in heaven and things on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things were created by him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body of the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. In the ESV it says, so that he may be preeminent before all things, will be first place. So this passage in Colossians 1 says that it's absolutely for him, by him, through him, held together for him, all so that he would be first place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say all of our gifts and abilities, athletic or otherwise, are, I think forward to, in the book of Revelation, the elders receiving their crowns. They receive these crowns from the Lord, and then they give them right back. It's for things that they, like, even for us, like, we will receive from the Lord things we've done, and we will give it right back to him. It's the same way with our gifts and abilities. They aren't mine. They're not meant or designed. It's kind of like on the back of these shirts we're wearing, God's way, God's power, God's glory. They're meant to be given back to make much of him, not to draw attention to us. And we take that attention that's given to us, and we reflect it. We reflect the glory back to God, and then we deflect it back to him as well. He's given us abilities that shine light, and then we deflect the glory back to him and to others. Yeah. We get to bless others.
Yeah. And that's a key piece. When we talk about the new mind, that's a key piece of the new mind in a life with Christ, is nothing is our own, even our very lives. Yes, it is. We are stewards for the amount of time that we have, what God has given us, and we are called to invest, to cultivate those things for the glory of God. Obviously, we're called to do that his way, by his power, and for his glory.
Yeah, and I think, like, just to that point of, like, I know I go to Lifehouse Middletown in Middletown, Delaware, and we just have this saying when we talk about worship through giving, when it comes to the point of tithing, we say give God glory through our talents, treasures, and time. And I ordered those wrong, but they're always in a different order. But like that was the key for me of like why I couldn't figure out how to do sports well, is because I couldn't figure out that I was supposed to be glorifying God through that. And that's why I wanted to give up, is because like I knew I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. I didn't know how to do that well. And so every other aspect of my life, everyone had always talked like you need to invest your talents, your treasures, and your time into giving into God. Like God has given you all those things, like you don't own any of them. But I didn't see like my athletic ability that way. And I know I talked about it on a podcast several episodes ago. But I mean, Wes even mentions it in this third point, but the parable of the talents really explains how I felt, or how I realized myself acting through my athletic ability. So yeah, but in the parable of the talents, we see a rich man give 10 talents to one man, 5 talents to another, and then 1 talent to the last man. And I always saw that as, only having to do with money. I always saw that, again, just from my very small point of view, I only saw that as, oh, he gave them money. They're supposed to make money with it and then give it back to him. And so like, that's how I saw my Christian walk, of like, oh, okay, I'm going to make money in my life, but I got to realize that this money isn't for me to have nice things or to be looked at as someone who has a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It's for me to use for God's purposes. And so what I realize is I'm not the guy going out and investing my talents. I'm not the guy doing well with the time that I have because I'm in youth group or I'm doing all these other things. Like I have something that God has specifically given me and gifted me in through sports. Like God has given me the talents that I have. I have no claim over what I can do in sports. And I was the guy who took my talent and wanted to bury it. I didn't want him to see it again. And I wanted to come back when he came back and just hand it to him. Like, here, you gave me this. I'm really glad that you did, but I buried it. So it's still here, but I didn't do anything with it. But I found myself to be the last guy in the parable with my athletic talent. We see that the guy with 10 talents goes and invests and makes a good amount of money. The second guy, who was given 5, he does the same thing and makes a little bit more money. But then the third man, who was given 1 talent, went and buried it in the dirt to keep it safe. And that's what I was doing with the talents that I've been given. I wasn't investing to bring purpose or glory to God. I just wanted nothing to do with it because I knew that there were other things that I could be doing. And so, yeah, it wasn't until that realization that sports became that way for me, where I could do those things. But no, you guys were talking about an added level, this added spiritual level that not only like just is another thing towards the mental and the physical, but it really, it drives everything that we do now in sports. Like it really bolsters and drives. We talked about great passion and strong will. Like I can't imagine now playing that way without realizing like that this is for God's glory. If I was doing this for myself, if we would have, like, if I was playing in that championship game for myself, like I would have given up. Like we had no chance of winning. If my goal was to win, then like there is no reason to play. If my goal is to win and we're up 20 points, then like there is no reason to participate anymore. There is no reason to give effort. But man, seeing God's purpose through all of it and being able to know that this is for his glory, it just pushes you to do so much more than you can. And I think that is just a wild part of being a Christian in sports. It's not that, like you said, it's not this limiting thing that, man, we have to play reserved, we have to play cautious, we have to play careful. No, we're able to play more free because we are not limited by the goals that everyone tells you that you have to have in sports. Like we're told that no matter what, and the same thing applies when you coach, the same thing applies when you work, the same thing applies when you're a fan. Like in every aspect of your life, there is no longer these limiting things that you can only be a good fan when your team is winning. You can only cheer hard when your team is doing well. You can only work hard when your company is doing well. You can only work hard when you're going to get a raise for it. Like, no, we're told that like in every aspect of our lives, there is now no longer a boundary because of the glory that Christ gains from our work.
I think to wrap up Zach's thoughts there, especially on the talent portion. It's there's this quote here from Wes at the end of the chapter, end of page 27. He says, "My athletic life has not been in Christ's control. It's been my thing up until now. I want it to be Christ's thing. I want it to be Christ from now on. I want to give my abilities, whatever they might be, back to him." I think that's just really well said. And maybe you're in that place. Maybe you're listening and you're in a place where athletics has been its own thing. It's been your thing until now. I think coming out of this chapter, we definitely want to urge you to make a commitment, like make a decision. That word decision means to cut off. We've talked about this on here before, but that word decision means to cut off all other options. Go all in. I mean, that story of Cortez coming to Mexico, the idea of burning the ships, there was no other option. Fight or die. Maybe the Lord is calling us or calling you. He's definitely calling us and you. But maybe you're at a decision point where it's time to go all in, make a commitment, to give it over, to admit that it's not about you and it's got to be about him. It's got to be his way. It's got to be his power living through you. And it's got to be about his glory, not your own. If that's the case, I challenge you to make a commitment. Make a commitment to follow the Lord in that way. Make a commitment to dive in deeper with this handbook. Make a commitment to reach out to us. You want to talk more about it. You want to set some action step. Be on the lookout for stuff coming from us here at Competing Biblically. Make a commitment. Make a choice. Take a step.
And I mean, this has been something that we have grown in, and this is no longer just a podcast, but I mean, we had our first Competing Biblically call last Monday. I guess when this airs, it'll be 2 Mondays now. And if you listen to this the very first day that it comes out, we'll be having our second one this Monday. We are here. We are doing that call first and third Monday of each month to walk through the handbook, to invite you on this with us. So if you're at a point where you think you want to make that decision or renew that decision, or you just want to be challenged, welcome. This is a challenging thing. We challenge each other. We challenge others to carry out the call of Christ. And if that's something you want to do, we invite you. There is a seat for you here, and we'd love to hear from you. Yeah,
and we don't have it figured out.
No, absolutely not.
Like you'll hear, stay tuned in the next episode. I mean, I'm going to open up about some struggles that I've had and how going through this handbook and spending time with the Lord, like I realized some areas where I've fallen dreadfully short and painfully short. And so it's not like, hey, come and listen to some gurus talk. Like, no, we're on this journey together. We're on this journey of glorifying God by closing the gap between our potential and performance by the power of the Spirit, through the power of the Spirit. We're doing this thing together. We've said this a bunch, but man, life is a team sport. This whole idea of being a Christian, it's a team sport thing. We need one another. And we'd love to have you on our calls. So you want to join us, please email competingbiblically@gmail.com, and we will get you plugged in.
Yeah.
And get you a shirt.
Yeah, but and get you a nice shirt. They are really nice, too, if I can say so myself.
Long sleeve, too. Look on social media. We're going to post these we're going to post these
last week.
So go back in time to the Tuesday before you hear this, and we are going to post pictures. So anyway, the shirts are up on Competing Biblically social media. Yeah,
and like Nick said, we are through this journey. We're not at the end telling you to run it. We are on the journey ourselves, and we're saying, come along with us. That's what this is about. And that's why we do this. And we're excited to see what's ahead. God, we vision cast every single week for, like, God is working things out in us. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with this, but we just know that this is what God is asking us to do, and we're following him faithfully, and we're inviting you to be a part of that as well. And, oh, hey, listen. Also, we're looking for, if you've been listening and growing and really engaging, and if we know you, let us know. And if we don't, shoot us an email, please, because as we move forward, we're looking at people. We want to expand this tent and bring some other people along. So please reach out to us, because we'd love to know who you are. And if you're someone who wants to help be a part of this, let us know. We'd love to have some conversations with you. And as always, get you a copy of the handbook. If you don't, you can get one on Cross Training Publishing. You can ask us for one. You can join the Competing Biblically call, and you'll get one. And also, we have Ron Brown's videos in the description as well, which are always helpful to all these chapters. He a lot of times goes in a little bit different direction than we do, so it's cool to be able to get two different perspectives of the same chapter and of the same content. So thank you guys for joining us as always, and let's keep seeing where the Lord goes, and we'll see you next time.
Amen. Splendid.